Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, ending the week on a fantastic and yet, I'd say, pretty entertaining Friday here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us part of your evening. Jake's joining us. Well, all right then. I think, to me personally, look, I grew up in the wild, wild west in Las Vegas, find myself in Denver, still staying in the West. But I think some things are about to get pretty wild now, because after hearing about the news that Pete Carroll is officially in Las Vegas with the Raiders, I kind of feel pretty good about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. You've got right now, there's only one coaching vacancy remaining, and that is the New Orleans Saints. It's already been said that Brian Schottenheimer is going to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys and everything. It's been reported on. It's just a matter of finalizing a deal with that. We've also got the GM news of the Bucs hiring their GM. The Raiders hired their GM today. And I think the Bucs GM, the assistant one, and then today the Jets hired theirs, and the assistant Broncos GM is who they got.
So there's a lot to really break down, and so let's talk about that. So all right, well, the AFC West just got wilder, and it's continuing to be competitive, and I love the state of this. So the Las Vegas Raiders, and like we said, many people thought that Ben Johnson probably could have came to this organization. However, they did not end up firing Tom Telesco until at least a little bit later. But it was clear. It was clear-coded that he was going to go to Chicago. But in this instance with the Las Vegas Raiders, they decide to go with an older, more experienced, in terms of winning and in terms of structure and stability, and that is Pete Carroll. I actually love this hire. And the only reason of this is because not only are you getting the most experienced winning culture type of division in football in the AFC West, it pertains to Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, Sean Payton, and Pete Carroll. But this is one that's going to be competitive and exciting for like the next few years. Now, so the deal is a 3-year deal in Las Vegas, and I love this one because we know that Tom Brady has had experiences playing against Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll started his coaching career with the Seattle Seahawks at one point, had 2 stints in the NFL, the Jets and the Patriots. And eventually, 3 times the charm lands up in Seattle. And we know that he turned around and established a culture in Seattle that everybody was built upon from 2010 to 2023. The thing about the Seattle Seahawks is that with Pete Carroll, you were getting a very good elite defense. The other thing was he's also a fantastic recruiter. You saw him in years at USC when he recruited all of the top best players in most of their positions and has won 2 national championships. He's been to 2 Super Bowls, won 1, could have won 2, but we all know the story of that. But I think this was a lot of Tom Brady wanted experience in the building, and I think he got it with Pete Carroll. And by the way, remember that Super Bowl between the Patriots and the Seahawks? That was nothing but just a chess match between the two of them. I know everybody was talking about how controversial that play call was. Why didn't they go on the run with Marshawn Lynch? The guy could have clearly ran that in, didn't, made the throw from Russell Wilson, and it was picked off, and that was the end of it. But the one sheer respect is Pete Carroll definitely gave Tom Brady a bit of fits. That defense and the offense with the trustworthiness of Russell Wilson and the rest of that offense, it was giving him fits. And I think that's what Tom Brady really respects more. It was more of just a chess match. The other thing is he's put together a culture in Seattle. And the funny thing of it is there's many benefactors to this. I look at the AFC West today, and Pete Carroll is the oldest coach in this division because then there's Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, and Sean Payton. And what all of them have up in common, let's just break it down. So with Pete Carroll now added to this mix, Andy Reid has come from 2 fantastic cultures, which was Philadelphia and Kansas City. Okay, he led the Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl appearance, multiple NFC championship titles, appearances, and then comes to Kansas City. You already know the story, how many times they've been to the AFC championship game and how many times they've won the division and how many times they've won playoff games and has won 3 Super Bowls with the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, right? So there's that. Sean Payton took a New Orleans losing culture, turned that around post Hurricane Katrina, and this team built a lot of its success. Drew Brees, who the Chargers have mutual respect for, goes to New Orleans, builds a culture with Sean Payton, absolutely trustworthy. The team put together offensively, defensively, and wins a Super Bowl in 2011. And man, they were widely respected. Now, of course, New Orleans, you could see them now post Sean Payton, and they don't look the same. It looks like they're kind of out of rhythm. It looks like they're kind of out of character. And that's all a part of Sean Payton putting together a culture, reshaping it, and now they're Super Bowl champions. And then comes here to Denver with a young quarterback in Bo Nix. Not to mention, he made Russell Wilson work with 24 touchdowns, 8 picks the year prior. But there was too much cringiness in the building, and I don't blame it. And Russell Wilson now in Pittsburgh, and I'll get a little bit more into that on the tail end. But the thing of it is Sean Payton found his guy in Bo Nix and is going to build around that future for a long time. And then we get into Jim Harbaugh, which everybody, of course, is all going to probably talk more about his tenure with Michigan. But here's the thing. Everywhere Jim Harbaugh has been, from Stanford to San Francisco to Michigan and now with the Chargers, he's a culture builder. At Stanford, a tech program that was 1-11, turned that program around, won a bowl game, and also helped Andrew Luck's draft stock be the number 1 overall pick. And so to me, I think it was clear. You know, and I think with Jim Harbaugh and what he was doing also in San Francisco, got them to 2 NFC championships, got to a Super Bowl appearance before the Trent Baalke deal, and then that's when he went to his alma mater at Michigan. And it took a bit of time until Jim Harbaugh was able to beat Ohio State, got the roster he wanted with all the players that he recruited, and then wins a natty. And then comes to the Chargers with Justin Herbert, tries to turn this organization around to where it's a healthier culture, and they made it to the playoffs with, I think, arguably, if this is their floor at 11-6, I can imagine what their ceiling is after this offseason with both free agency and the draft. So the Raiders getting Pete Carroll, I think, is a smart idea. And I think at the same time, Spytek, the GM that they have, very trustworthy. When Brady was in Tampa, very smart, and I think is also good for player personnel. I think that's why when you put 2 and 2 together, you got the smart guy in the GM room who will work with player personnel. Pete Carroll, old school recruiter who has a lot of his pipeline in Southern California and all around the West Coast. I think this could work. And to me, this is going to be a competitive division for the next 3 to 5 years. And I think if Pete Carroll really turns around, shapes this organization, because they haven't had built stability in over 20 years. They haven't. There's been a lot of mediocrity with head coach and franchise quarterbacks and a lot of other players. It was a mess. You finally got somebody to help to stabilize this mess. And like I said, it could be a potentiality that Mike McCarthy could be the Saints head coach. And you know what? They need that. They need stability. They need to get themselves back on track. Pete Carroll is another one. Now, the knock, of course, on Carroll is there were times where he was a bit loyal to some of his coordinators that he should have ripped the Band-Aid on. But maybe that could change. And I think with having the GM Spidek in the building, I think could help him a little bit more. Innovation with old school mentality and not to mention smarter recruiting. This could be the perfect ideal fit. And at the same time, plenty of cap space, plenty of draft capital. Everybody that's been talking about, Max Crosby maybe potentially leaving, I don't think he'll leave if the Raiders give him a 3-year extension, pay him upright, and stay. And then you're building together the team, the culture, and getting stability in the building. I think that Max Crosby would definitely buy into this. So I think this was a great hire for the Raiders, and it's an even better look for the AFC West that could definitely go toe-to-toe. All right, now let's talk about Liam Cohen and Jacksonville. So here's what's funny about this. Chase and I really talked more about it, and we talked more specifically with the state of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And wouldn't you know, Liam Cohen, I knew was never going to leave Florida. If the Miami job, if Mike McDaniel couldn't work next year with the Dolphins, get him into the playoffs, maybe give him at least a better winning record, then it would be done. And I think, Liam Cohen, he spent many years in the NFL, even up and in college, and he was the other hot commodity. So to me, this was Liam Cohen selling himself and putting the pitch together. He wants his staff. Many teams and many coaches who have been hired on have done the same thing. Jim Harbaugh wanted his own staff. Tom Brady, by the way, who had minority ownership, wanted a better staff and also got the right coaches in here. And the thing about Jacksonville is that Liam Cohen, by the way, and this is something that pertains more to Sean McVay. So did you know Sean McVay would be turning 39? You know how many coaches have right now gotten head coaching jobs who have served under Sean McVay? That's 5, now including Liam Cohen. What that tells you is that there is a mutual line of respect for Sean McVay. And McVay, who's become more of the culture setter now, rather than just be that smart offensive genius, this is what it is now. And this is the standard. This is the tree. And Liam Cohen, there's been a lot of very, very good positive things said about him with turning around quarterbacks, building together a very good, clever offensive playbook. And this is what Jacksonville needed. And by the way, Jacksonville, there's no pressure in this organization. The cons finally started to understand. It was more Trent Baalke than anything else. And wouldn't you know, Trent Baalke fired out of the building. And I think this was actually the perfect selling pitch Liam Cohen sold himself, is that you probably figured he would say no the first time because Baalke's in the building. And now with him out, Jacksonville had to ensure themselves, we want you. We want a second interview, and we promise we are not going to let you leave the building. And wouldn't you know, power has now been passed to Liam Cohen. And I think a lot of this is, and this is all that what pertains to Sean McVay. Sean McVay started off as a smart offensive playbook genius, now has built a serious culture. 5 head coaching hires, Liam Cohen being one of them, Kevin O'Connell, Raheem Morris, multiple other coaches. And that is the mutual line of respect for Sean McVay. And I got to tell you, a lot of people even looked at Andy Reid's coaching tree when he had Matt Nagy and when he had Doug Peterson and a bunch of other very good coaches. I mean, they worked, but for Sean McVay to make it work faster and even work better and maybe potentially turn some things around, I mean, Sean McVay deserves all the credit. And by the way, Sean McVay is 39, if you haven't checked already. And to have 5 head coaching hires now under Sean McVay's tree before 39, what an insane thing for this to happen in the NFL culture. It seriously is. I'm happy Liam Cohen, they didn't let him leave the building. They shouldn't have, and they at least did right by what he wanted. And that was firing Trent Baalke because you knew he wasn't going to get along with any coach that was going to come into this building. Felt a lot more rigid, felt a lot more sideways. And for Liam Cohen, he didn't want that. And he's actually put this perfectly. You want me, we got to get him out. We need better personnel in this building because Jacksonville, you know they got talent, you know they got players, and you know that they got a franchise quarterback they got to make work. So I think Liam Cohen, I think Jacksonville would definitely turn this thing around. Jacksonville is on a better path today than what they were just a few days ago. And I think this works for them. Yeah, I think we are very honest about, and like I said, I think these were 2 fiery head coaching hires for all the right reasons. I mean, in my opinion, sometimes, and you know what we found out about this, and this is actually kind of interesting. I look at what the Raiders are, and I think about the Clippers per se at the time. And follow me on this, because you had Jerry West, who we know is the late, great Jerry West, who was a very smart, old school type of person. He played in the league, knows exactly how to shape at least really good players that could help him to win on offense, and at the same time, they played more physical. And then there was the smarter guy in the building, a little bit more of like the analytics and a little bit more of the player personnel and scouting that was new into technologies, found a way to really innovate it and really like structurize it to where it's stable and it's consistent. And it both worked in harmony. Spidek, who's only 44 years old, when Tom Brady was there in Tampa, he very much respected him in the front office and felt like, you know what? This is the new technology and this is the new player personnel we need in the building. Check. Then you get the coach who is a culture builder, and what he did in Seattle from 2010 to 2023, building this team, 2 Super Bowl appearances, winning 1, going to multiple playoffs and winning multiple playoff games, understands what it takes to stabilize and build culture. Sometimes, and this is the thing, sometimes you got to mix old school mentality and build with newer technologies that only can solidify and really kind of structurize itself to where it's consistent on both ends. I think the Raiders are in the perfect spot now. I've seen them in mediocrity in the last 20 years with GMs, coaches, quarterbacks. Finally, the Raider fans can breathe. Finally, they can structure.
Yeah, I mean, right now, like the AFC West have the oldest coaches, NFC West have the youngest coaches, and like you said, the Sean McVay coaching tree. Out of all the coaches that have been hired, we have 2 that have had very good success. One that is unknown in Liam Cohen. One that is kind of getting his feet wet in Raheem Morris, and then one that was just completely bad in Brandon Staley. And that's the only one out of the coaching tree that's been bad. I think Liam Cohen was their first choice for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Ben Johnson was option C. option C out of all three of them. Robert Saleh was option B. And, I think that people look at this Pete Carroll hire like, why? But he's not going to be your permanent head coach, but he is a coach that is going to build the foundation for the future head coach that comes into here. And now Tom Brady's going to have to sit here and ask himself, we need a quarterback. Who is the best one in this draft? And is it worth trading up for, or do we risk it and stay there at 6 and try to pick up Shador or Cam if the Browns don't pick one of them up?
I think it would really set the tone depending on how free agency goes. I see the Raiders after doing this. They love Max Crosby. They know he's the heart and soul of this defense. I mean, you're going to get Christian Wilkins back 110% next year. And then you've got a couple of very good defensive players like Robert Spillane, who I really like, and several others. You could go and get some more defensive pieces. But offensive line, running game, maybe another wide receiver, and then you go and get your future franchise quarterback. Because to me personally, 3 of the 4 in this division already have their franchise quarterbacks. Mahomes, Herbert, and now Bo Nix. So that's why the Raiders got to get on the same page. And because for 3 years, this actually seems right. Because to me, you have plenty of time to shape the culture up in the next 3 years to stabilize it, structurize it, and now it's consistent. So the next guy that comes in, it's a better, healthier environment. And I think Tom Brady, this was the question, right? How was he going to respond knowing Ben Johnson now goes to Chicago? And who knows exactly what he'll do there. I hope for future successes. I really do. But this was the answer that Tom Brady knew he needed to do. And it actually worked. It's perfect. Now, Jacksonville, and like I told you, the difference with both of these, Raiders have not found stable success in over 20 years, maybe even more than that. Jacksonville, they still seem fairly newer to me. They still do. But they are in the process of, it's perfect because any young guy that comes up in here, and I think Liam Cohen is perfect for this role because there's not a ton of pressure. You have a franchise quarterback. You turn Baker Mayfield next to Dave Canales, you turn him into the quarterback that he is now. And on top of all that, Trevor Lawrence, your objective is to get him to work. Not to mention, build a clever playbook to open that up for the offense now to start scoring up more points. And it's consistent. And I think that's perfect for Liam Cohen. But I think it's also much more fascinating the fact that even before his 39th birthday, that Sean McVay is accounted for 5 head coaching jobs.
And one that's not worked. One of them has not worked, and that's the only one so far.
That's the only one. And the funny thing of it is like, because like, it even when he's worked mutually with Kyle Shanahan in the past in Washington, but for LaFleur, for Kevin O'Connell, for Raheem Morris, and here with Liam Cohen and one other, that's very impressive.
Yeah, Brandon Staley was the only bad one.
Like before 40 years old. And this is the thing. We've seen Andy Reid's coaching tree with Matt Nagy at the time, which I felt like Nagy, he could have worked if Chicago just got the right quarterback. If they had the defense. And then Doug Peterson won a Super Bowl with Philadelphia. Now, granted, didn't really end up working out after that. But even Jacksonville players, once he got fired, they all loved Doug Peterson. They liked it. And so I think now when you get stability in this room, and I think at the same time, you're not really missing a step because you are getting the smart offensive guy now in Liam Cohen to turn this thing around. I think Jacksonville and the Raiders.
Wasn't Shane Steichen under Andy Reid, or was he under Sean McVay?
Shane Steichen, I believe, because he wasn't with McVay at the time. Like he wasn't. I think Steichen, he probably could have had ties with Andy Reid, but yeah, another very good coach. But the point of it is I mean, if you're an older coach like an Andy Reid, of course you're going to have mutual respect for the coaching tree you have. I just feel like with Sean McVay, this is why we've said I think he's moved into that culture stage. He's no longer that smart offensive-minded coach. He's moved into that culture stage where this is the standard. And he's accounted for at least all these hires. So that's why I'm like, I think it's so impressive, and he's not even 40 yet. So it's
been in the league, 8 years now?
Yeah. Started out so young
Jeez.
in St. Louis to come into Los Angeles and do what he does I think is just impressive like that. I mean, again, I think at the end of the day, Sean McVay, he's not even done coaching. That's why this whole retirement spiel and all the rest of it. Why would you want to retire? You're in the prime of your coaching success.
He said that he wants to start a family. That's why.
Well, and I understand that, but here's the thing, though. I mean, I got plenty of time off. I get plenty of time off. You know what I mean? And at the end, that's
do they really?
They do. They have plenty of time off compared to college.
Dude, they got all the NFL season. They've got the East-West Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl, the Combine, the Draft, and then OTAs and.
Guess what? This is what you have staff members for. This is why you have a scouting department. This is why you have those people. That's their job. Sean McVay, I mean, he just fresh off of the playoffs. You go ahead, take a few months off, go on vacation, reset your mind, all the rest of it, and then we're ready to back to work again. It's different in college because college, you're on it every day. You're dealing with academics. You're dealing with the transfer portal and the NIL. You're dealing with recruitment. You're dealing with all that. By the way, Bill Belichick now officially signing his contract. He is now being a college coach. Once those 7 coaching jobs now turn into 2 left, he's not taking any of the other jobs. So that's why I'm like, it was better off. Like, it's better off now that he's up in college. But again, there's no sleep. As a college coach, ask a lot of these college coaches. I mean, Nick Saban, he tried several times in the NFL, knew he was a college football legend, and then at the same time, Urban, I'm watching the American Sports Story of Aaron Hernandez. And the one thing, and I know it's Hollywood, but here's the thing. Urban Meyer had some health problems because of how draining it is in college football, where you have to think about these kids. Are these some of these kids? Do I have troublemakers in my locker room? Do I have these kids that are academically poor, or are they actually academically smart, where they build leadership? You have to think about those things constantly if you're in college football. Not so much in the NFL. In the NFL, you're coaching grown men. Grown men can take care of themselves. Sure, you're going to have at least a couple players that might, they might slip up, but they're not out there being like complete idiots. That's why I'm like, I think it's better in the NFL. You get plenty of time off. You take vacations as you need to. It's better than it is in college football. And that's why college football is so tribal in this. But there are coaches who are actually built for that kind of tribal atmosphere, right? So but that's what I'm saying. Los Angeles, Les Snead and Stan Kroenke, they know they have such great built success with Sean McVay. How could they not give him at least enough time? And that's what I'm saying.
I mean,
that kind of
I don't know. Like, I can understand you wanting to start a family and everything, and like the off season, like you are more involved in the Senior Bowl than what you think you are. And granted, like the time between like the pro days and combine and everything, he's at the combine. The pro days, of course you can have your scouts go to and everything, but then you've got mini camps that you've got to be at. You've got OTAs you've got to be at. Then you've got training camp you've got to be at. So, like, there's realistically, like, 3 months maybe out of the year that you have come completely free with nothing to do, and then you're right back at it with everything else.
But, and this is the thing, is it's like even with those 3 months. I mean, think about how players end up feeling when they start theirs. I mean, it's not as easy for them either. They're constantly in the workout room. They're constantly, getting themselves in better shape. Or some of them are going through, injury rehabilitation. They're all going through that. And then at the same time, you're back to work again. You're either, even if you're a young up-and-comer out of college, you're going into the scouting combine, going into training camps, going into the draft, going into a lot of this stuff. Even players have to feel some of that. But I will tell you, though, everybody in life, and this is why prioritizing, structurizing, and stabilizing your life is the most important essential elements into building a healthier lifestyle. I mean, we think about this in some of our entities because they preach upon work-life balance. Because, of course, you need the time off with your family. Of course, you need the time to unwind and to give yourself a mental break, because they know this stuff can be stressful. They know that this stuff can be a lot, but it's better in the NFL than it can be in college football, because college football with the NIL and transfer portal and like all the rest of it, it's all spread around from here. And that's why coaches are trying to at least get a grip. You know how many of those college coaches, even Kirby Smart and Dabo Swinney and multiple others, they voiced about this. We're so blown out of proportion because of this whole NIL thing that we can't even get stabilized. That's the difference. At least with the NFL, there's a salary cap. You got your time of as far as OTAs, training camp, all of that. They're all set in structure. So at least it'll give you those 3 months. And then you're back at it again. You're feeling refreshed. You're feeling very well. And listen, they got enough money that they can figure it out. I mean, these are grown adults here we're talking about. If you're not prioritizing it, you're not structurizing yourself, what do you think that says about you as a human being? That's where you got to get right. But either way, Sean McVay will be on the road to already being a Hall of Fame coach. With the amount of those hires, with a Super Bowl victory, with 2 Super Bowl appearances, and the amount of success that the Rams have built, and even with that kind of structure with Stan Kroenke, Les Snead, McVay's fine. He will work that out. So yeah, but again, I mean, compared to the Raiders, who needed structurization and needed stability, that's perfect for Pete Carroll. And Pete Carroll is 73. You would cross your fingers, pray to God that at least he'll be in good health at 73. Think about it. They, so yeah. Good stuff. But I'll tell you what, though. I mean, it'll be interesting with the Houston Texans now. With Bobby Slowick now out of the building. We'll talk more about that. We'll talk more about Robert Saleh now heading back to San Francisco. What this now is going to mean for the 49ers. Because I think there's going to be important pieces, and I think they smell it coming. But this is why they got to get themselves right. We'll talk more about that. Also, championship prime predictions as well around the corner as well here on the show. All righty, folks. Well, like we said, 2025 has officially kicked off. We're already almost done with the month of January. And you know what? This time of year, this is where the NHL All-Star Game, the NBA, and college basketball, it starts to heat up. And the best way to get yourself on top of it and on the edge of your game is by checking out and joining what BetUS has to offer. One of their state-of-the-art best sports betting book for over 30 years in the country. And not to mention daily fantasy and daily sports betting lines that are already every day, every week for every matchup to get you on the edge of your game, and the best in class account managers to at least manage your account well, giving you at least the best experience with BetUS. When you sign up, $50 or more to your deposit, and in the first 3 deposits, that it's the bonuses up from 125% and matches up to $2,000 in bonuses. So the more you deposit, the more that bonus goes up, the more chances to win in all these daily contests, plus casino entertainment for all of you who love slots, tables, whatever you desire. They have that too. Go online to betus.com, sign yourself up, link in the description. Gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER or seek therapy in your respective states, wherever you may be, because BetUS doesn't want you to gamble irresponsibly. They want you to gamble with the right mindset, getting you on the edge of your game while the season continues to cook up. BetUS.com, BetUS, where the game begins.
Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts that get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Snake Sports Talk Show is sponsored by Muscle Tech, with hundreds of supplements and vitamins to choose from, all packed with 100% all-natural proven ingredients. You can be sure that Muscle Tech will give you the edge and the boost to train and look like your fit and healthy best, whatever your goals are. Try Muscle Tech today and use promo code SNAKESPORTS to save 30% off your purchases.
So the Houston Texans, who I really, really respect, and with everything that they basically have put together since D'Amico Ryans, Nick Casario has put together, C.J. Stroud, definitely a one-of-a-kind quarterback, only getting better and better each year. And, of course, this year wasn't quite a great year. However, the Houston Texans, after 2 divisional round appearances, they have officially fired offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick. And the part of this reason is because there was some mediocrity when it came to the play calling. Now, listen, the Houston Texans, we knew they were going to get exposed in a way because nobody had film on C.J. Stroud in year 1. He was a rookie. How could anybody get film on C.J. Stroud? But we know what C.J. Stroud is, okay? Has great pocket awareness, has a great throwing arm, and also has great accuracy and self-awareness in the pocket. Because when you watch that game against the Chargers in the wild card, you knew how many times that C.J. Stroud ran out the pocket, distributed, and delivered the ball to all of his offensive weapons that were not named Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. He had Nico Collins, and man, it was working well. And not to mention Dalton Schultz, several other receivers. It worked out just fine for Houston. Now, once they got to Kansas City, I mean, their defense is immaculate. But a lot of that is because D'Amico Ryans, defensive-minded coach, former player, understands how to build a great defense. Offensively this year, and what I pointed out, and what we saw as far as the proof in the pudding, offensive line on the interior side, you got to get that cleaned up. The other thing is, are you going to bring back Stephon Diggs? We know Tank Dell is probably going to be out for quite some time with that leg injury. And man, I feel bad. But Bobby Slowick, the offensive coordinator, last year, there was a lot of rah-rah in the building about how clever that he was as an offensive coordinator, where you come into this year openly exposed on the offensive line. Certain play calls on offense that were questionable. By the way, Joe Mixon, who I think has been so pivotal for the Houston Texans and for a 6th-round pick, right? You get him for at least dirt cheap. And he comes in. They didn't get anything cooking in the first half against that Charger defense. And the second half, boy, he was running all over the place. He was running out of his mind. And so, but what the point with Bobby Slowick is, I think there's still some work to be done. And Bobby Slowick is going to get a job somewhere. He will. He's not that horrifying of an offensive coordinator, but you got to understand, this is a young built roster. It's not even fully established yet. So Bobby Slowick, I think he could definitely get a job somewhere. I mean, the Lions are looking for an offensive coordinator, but they might promote someone from within, one of their internal pieces. There are several places that, Bobby Slowick can end up getting an offensive coordinating job. He's not going to go without. And listen, some of these coordinators, and this is what you got to understand, is that they're built in the making. So Bobby Slowick, who's had a fun, entertaining tenure with the Houston Texans, doesn't mean he's not going to get vouched for at least another offensive coordinating job. He will. I think a lot of this is you got to build some consistency. I think when pressure is on your back, you got to find a way to improvise. You got to find a way to really find clarity in the offense and make it fluent, make it consistent. I think that was the knock on in Houston. That's why Houston had to go to a different direction. But nonetheless, at least with C.J. Stroud, he's had 2 years under Bobby Slowick, and they were fun. Now you're going to get a new offensive playbook. Now you're going to end up getting a new offensive, you're going to get a new offensive coordinator, and you're probably going to end up having to learn it from there. If they get somebody that's much more quarterback friendly, maybe chopping up a bunch of very clever offensive designs, then Houston will be in business. But Bobby Slowick, I'm telling you right now, he may not look like the coordinator some people think that he may not be. But if he goes a different spot and he learns more from there, do not be surprised about how much more praise they may give him as an offensive coordinator if, in fact, he works somewhere else. Chase with the news.
This is the Hot Press.
Again, I think we all saw the reality of it with Bobby Slowick, but he's not terrible. I think, to me personally, sometimes there are certain places where you need a change of scenery. Now, think about it this way. I mean, Shane Steichen turned he worked with both Phillip Rivers at the time in his tenure. They got into playoffs. They got to as far as the divisional round, right? And then once he got Justin Herbert in his rookie year, he was breaking all sorts of rookie records. But then Steichen, who was a hot commodity, is
goes to Philly.
Yeah, he goes to Philly. And he goes and learns a little bit more. Gets Philadelphia to a Super Bowl. And then eventually, this was where it was all a matter of timing, and it was all a matter of building experience. Steichen did just that. Now, who knows how Indianapolis is going to answer back after this year? I hope that they actually get things cleaned up, because I love Shane Steichen. I think he's right for the job. It's the same way I feel about Brian Dable. The thing is, coordinators, they go through this all the time. If you're not mentally prepared, or if you're not your playbook needs a little bit more tweaks and adjustments and all the rest of it, it's okay. It's okay just, going as an offensive coordinator, because you're not terrible at it when you can put together a playbook and be clever. You just need a few tweaks and adjustments. You know what I mean? It's like the screws on your scooter or your skateboard, whether you're a loose or you're a tight type of rider, even if you got to kind of screw the screws a little bit more tighter or a little bit more loose, you're gonna find consistency somewhere. That's my analogy with it. So Bobby Slowick, wherever he ends up going, I think they know what they're gonna get. But for him, I think he just needs a little bit more adjustment. That's all.
I mean, it really just depends on who they if he can get out of his own way, because I've been hearing from several people that he wouldn't let CJ run the offense. If CJ saw something on the defense or something that the defense was giving him and he wanted to change the play at the line and everything, Bobby wouldn't let him do it. Bobby would not let him change the play.
Could use that. And what's funny is because at least with C.J. Stroud, he can improvise. You watch that against the Chargers. How many times did he run out the pocket? How many times did he distribute the football and knew he had to improvise out that spot? C.J. will be fine. And I think if you get the right smart-minded coach who's up to speed and will allow C.J. Stroud to improvise, I think they would be fine. Here's the other thing. You know who could use that? Chicago. Because you talk about Caleb Williams being way too much into the backyard football deal. He needs structure. And at least with Bobby Slowick, he's a structured guy. He's not going to let you go and improvise unless you actually have built the structure, you're consistent in the structure, and now you're extending a little bit more of the field.
Yeah, and I think Ben's going to knock him out of that. But let's go into the coaching and coordinator hires.
You know what's funny is Ben Johnson could even tweak up a little bit of his play calling adjustment. So it could in hand.
Yeah. But let's get into the coaching and coordinator hires here because I just mentioned him a little bit ago, and there is one guy that has not gotten a chance to be an offensive coordinator in the NFL since 2023, and that is Eric Bieniemy, one of the foremost offensive coordinators. Patrick Mahomes had the best years of his career when Eric Bieniemy was on the Chiefs, and he was the one calling the plays, or at least, fine-tuning the offense. He goes over to Washington for 1 year. Sam Howell becomes the leading passer in the NFL because of Eric Bieniemy. And then he goes to UCLA, and they score like 14 to 21 points a game. But, that's not on Eric Bieniemy. That's on the team itself for having lack of talent. But I think Eric Bieniemy would fit very, very well with C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans.
I agree with that. And I think with C.J. Stroud, like I said, he knows how to improvise. I mean, you got to think about it. Patrick Mahomes, since he was up over there, he knew how to improvise. I think the point with Eric Bieniemy, and I think there's a little bit more of the story with Bieniemy of why he's not getting a head coaching job. But as far as a coordinator, I mean, I've watched Washington, at the time, small tenure window. But the thing is UCLA, let's be honest, since Chip Kelly left, this program hasn't quite found its stabilization. It's the same I could say about USC. They thought that Lincoln Riley was the answer. But look at the recruitment. He's not much of recruiting, at least in his spot. And that's why I think leaning so much in the transfer portal to get your offensive line, get your quarterback, to get your weapon, all the rest of it. You're starting to find out, and this is why I kept saying, you should never pull away from having to recruit all of the best players in your region. That's why I think USC and UCLA seems to be struggling in that, because look at a lot of these kids in the Southern California area. Most of them, like your top-tier weapons, they're all going to the SEC or they're going to the Big Ten. Some of them may actually go to the ACC. So my thing is with Eric Bieniemy is I think he's a very clever play designer, because at least think about, how many tips did him and Patrick Mahomes have? 2? That's it?
Chips like 3, I think. No, 2.
So it's like you get vocal, but you get passionate. That's why I think, and C.J. Stroud, he seems more like an even-keeled kid, and he'll be fine. He improvises a lot more. He cares about this offense, and I think at the same time, it's going to lean by how far he can take. So even if you get somebody like that in the building, and with DeMeco Ryans, now that may be pretty interesting there, because at least with DeMeco Ryans, former player, understands it, and they both have some similarities there. Bieniemy was a former running back. So it's like there's a part of that where there's a mutual connect. So I think, Bieniemy, if Houston decides to really look at him and hire him, I think they'll be fine. They're not going anywhere. I think the only team in the AFC South, because my question mark is on Indy after this year with how talented their roster was with draft, free agency, the Titans.
The players are calling out the quarterback in the offseason, telling him he needs to get better, otherwise he will be gone.
Expectations, that's what I'm saying. Caffeinated society, we have a lot of high expectations. They don't want to settle for mediocre or middle of the pack. The Titans are clearly in a rebuild. So that means that only leaves the Jags, who now have Liam Cohen, to potentially turn this thing around. I mean, you got to make Trevor Lawrence go.
There's a lot of guys out there that I'm surprised who are not coordinating right now, and they're just like pass game coordinators, tight end coaches, whatever it is that may be. Like Darrell Bevell was one of the foremost offensive coordinators back in his day, and he's an OC with the Dolphins, but he's not calling plays because of Mike McDaniel. Like there's a lot of defensive coaches right now, or coaches that don't call plays, that could use him as, or could use guys like that as OCs. So it's going to be very interesting. Moving on to news about the NBA. The commissioner of the NBA has come out and said that he would like to have a couple expansion teams in Europe or overseas, have teams overseas and play there. And I'm like, gosh, if you think that the ratings are falling now in the United States, imagine what it's going to be like over there.
Well, here's the thing. I think the international numbers, maybe we could do some research and dig those up, but I don't think the international numbers are going to drop. And the only reason of that is because look at some of the international players that are succeeding in the NBA right now. Luka, Giannis, Jokic, Wemby. Everybody, I think, internationally is still tuning into the NBA, more particularly for these foreign players. But why? This is why you see, I think, a lot of people are scrutinizing the leadership of Adam Silver. Why would you want to have the thought now of trying to expand internationally when you can't seem to get structure on your own home soil? What is that doing? Why are you not working on your domestic players right now? This is why I've said, and you've heard me hound on this, get with the program. It's 2025. The NFL has such a strong, healthy relationship with college football. The only thing that college football needs to structureize and needs to get better is the NIL and the transfer portal. That should not be that hard. And people are already saying that college football should have a salary cap. I'm for it, because at least it would make the programs more competitive and more balanced base, because each program, they're going to get a certain amount. And I like it. And this is why I said you need a commissioner, you need a CEO, or you need at least a committee of people. How many times have people already put in petitions to have Nick Saban be the front runner? Not to be SEC biased, but because he knows the tribalness and he also understands the structure and the build that college football is already being at right now. Now, again, that's up to him if he wants to accept it, because the NIL is what really kind of burnt them out, the transfer portal as well, because, once these kids, if they don't get no playing time, they could go play elsewhere. That's the hard part. But for the NBA, I've got no structure, no relationship with college basketball at all, which is sad, because now I'm not getting enough domestic players who are either 3-4 years in like the NFL, and they're ready to play right now. So that's why I'm like, why even tamper with that thought? That's why I'm like, this is why the leadership is being questioned about Adam Silver. He's under fire. And this is why, I'll tell you one thing. The late, great David Stern would have never allowed for a broken relationship in college basketball. I'm telling you, he would not allow that. Because if you watch David Stern at that time when he was commissioner beforehand, how fun was that to watch at the NBA? Physical, star power, most teams, and again, the parity in the NFL, in the NBA, is much different than the parity in the NFL. Because the NBA, when do those triplets, the trios, when do they ever last in some teams? They're starting to figure that out. We're starting to get back to the 2 stars in almost every organization now in the NBA. You just got to strengthen up and build these players coming out of college. Let this be a slow cook. Stop making it like it's instant grits or rice or mashed potatoes. It does not work like that. The pyramids were never built in a day. Okay, they weren't even built in just several hours. Like, let these college kids cook, and at least give them the mentality, the mature mentality. Let them be a slow cook build to where they work on their skill sets. They're much more they're much more physically tested and built for the NBA, and they're also very mentally matured, with especially when endorsement, branding, and contract deals start to come around. Because you give that to a 17-year-old, again, a 17-year-old in a foreign country would probably have a different mental maturity than a 17-year-old in the United States.
Yep.
Especially in today's social norm. That's why I'm like, forget about it with the foreign thing. Work on here first. You know what that
make it better before you continue going.
You know what? I hate to get political, but think about this. This feels a lot more like a Democratic type of pitch than it does. I'm telling you, in my life, I would love to be structured. I would love to be consistent first before I open a broad range of all these ideas. That makes sense. Like I said, I don't try to throw any politics in the show, but that's what it seems to feel like out of Adam Silver. I don't get it.
Does the NBA and NHL have a draft lottery?
They do, and so does Major League Baseball. But
so does Major League Baseball. That's where I want to get into. Roger Goodell has been open to the idea of bringing a draft lottery to the NFL, and I think that the NFL is perfect the way that they have it. I think that's how all the other major league franchises, except for MLB, I think that they're fine with the draft lottery. But I think all the other major sports franchises should have it structured the way the NFL is. Because if you have teams 16 through 1 and then 17 through 32, not get the chance to move and they stay where they're at because of the playoffs, but 16 through 1, you're telling me, let's say, for example, a team that barely missed the playoffs, like the Miami Dolphins, they get a chance to have the number 1 overall pick. That shouldn't be right. I think that if you are the crappiest team, you have the chance to get the best player. And then if you have a team, let's say the Chiefs didn't make the playoffs one year. Well, now you got the Chiefs that potentially could have the number 1 overall pick. And imagine if it's one of the best edge rushers we've ever seen. Now, instead of that going to the team.
Yeah, think about the level of unfairness that would be. That's why the NFL is perfect where it's at with that. Here's the thing. The understanding the draft lottery, and here's how it would work. So the NHL, in my opinion, I think it's 50-50, 60-40. Good. It really is. Because here's the funny thing. The Chicago Blackhawks knew, this is a perfect example, because they knew they needed to move past from the glory days of 3 Stanley Cups in 5 years with Patrick Kane, with Jonathan Kane, with Marian Hossa. They don't have any more that they could build upon. So at least the draft lottery worked for them because they got arguably, I believe, building one of the greatest players who will eventually become a household name in hockey in Connor Bedard right after Connor McDavid. I mean, he's the closest thing to that. So that's why, and Chicago, here's the thing. Think about the state of Chicago. I mean, the Bears, the Cubs, the White Sox, the Bulls, they did, since their dominances of late 80s all the way up to the 2000s, maybe even the 10s, it's not the same anymore. And so that's why they needed something new. And at least it's perfect for Chicago because now you're going to build that. I mean, I'm hoping.
Only Chicago franchise to bring a ring in the 2010s is the Cubs. Yeah. Every other Chicago franchise, the Bears have made it to a Super Bowl in 2006, lost it to Manning, and the White Sox made it to the World Series in 2005, won that. Yep. But then you have the Bulls have not won a championship since the 90s. The Bears have not won one since the 80s and everything. So, you have all of these Chicago franchises, except for the Blackhawks. I don't know when the last time was that they won the
Blackhawks. The last time they won a Stanley Cup was in 2015. But because, like Chicago, they're a very proud sports city. That's why I'm saying they've had their reigns of dominances. They've had such great players, from MJ to the great defense, the monsters of the Midway. They've had, the Cubs. Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, all Peanut Tillman, like all these guys. And so this is the thing. They are a proud sports franchise. That's just how they've been built. But since then, like, I mean, think about it. How big was the hype after MJ left? You know what they were before Derrick Rose came into the building? They were so unwatchable. Right after MJ retired and before Derrick Rose came here.
And when Scottie Pippen was gone.
I did not even watch a lick of Bulls basketball until the kid out of Memphis, Derrick Rose, came in, Rookie of the Year, MVP, the most electrifying player. All that happened was just there was a spurt of injuries. And again, I think Chicago would have been fine. But the point is that they're such a proud sports city. That's why the Blackhawks, I'd said about this too, about the Phillies. Okay, Philadelphia, when they had Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, and Carlos Ruiz, they stuck so heavily to the names after they won the World Series in 2008, and they never innovated. That's why I'm like, when I look at Ruben Amaro Jr., I was just like, what the hell are you doing? This timeline is done. You got to start innovating. You got to start thinking about things. And that's why I'm like, they waited way too long. But at least for Chicago, all is not lost now that you got Connor Bedard. But the point is that there are some organizations. And the thing about hockey, what's unique is I don't hear much about hockey players until they're probably about their second or third year. Surprisingly, they build better products than the NBA. Because even though a lot of them, they're all international and then they're also domestic based, because I live here in the past college championship team, University of Denver, who won their hockey championship this past year. They produce some pretty damn good kids. And you're in a prime spot where you got the Colorado Avalanche. Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Gabriel Landeskog, Cale Makar. They got a lot of very, very good players. And they're
Avalanche
good.
just made a trade too.
Yeah, that's the crazy. Yeah, we'll have more hockey talk the more and more we get closer to it because I'm excited about it. I mean, I just tuned into my boys, the Vegas Golden Knights, last night on a little date night. Looked right there up on Chili's, and I'm seeing them play St. Louis, and man, was that a game. But beside the point, 60-40, 50-50, I think the lottery works for hockey. In baseball, I think it's worked out just fine for them because here's the thing.
Yeah.
These players don't. You got to go through a whole entire minor league system. That's why I would love to have my friend that I played high school baseball with to come onto the show because only he, and I think this is a perfect story, to go through the minors, go through the draft, to go through the call-ups, and then the trades because he's a journeyman. And now he's finally found a home in Detroit. So that's why I'm like, I would love to hear the processes so people can understand why this kind of worked. In the NBA, the problem of it is you could put a same structure with the draft processes like the NFL, but here's the problem. NFL produces day one guys faster than the NBA. Hell, hockey players like NHL produces better hockey players than the NBA. So it's like, but that's what I'm saying. It's like, I don't understand why the NFL would do it. And I truthfully don't believe after all these years, I think it's just, they're bringing up an idea, but I think that's going to get shot down. Why would you mess with a product that you know has been so consistent and has worked? And that's why we are spending all this money on streaming sites and like all these other, events. Why would you ruin that? Why would you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. Like, imagine the Chiefs getting the top edge rusher in the draft because they missed the playoffs 1 year.
49ers, and a lot of these top tier teams.
The Eagles.
Yeah, the Eagles. Like, hell, I mean, I understand this is only just the beginning of the Detroit Lions with their track record of success.
Yeah, imagine if they were able to get like Arch Manning or something. Like that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just insane to think about like having a draft lottery for the NFL. It's perfect the way it is. The draft lottery works the best, like out of all of them for the MLB. It is the best system for that.
Yeah, because it's a slow cook build in Major League Baseball. Not like that in the NFL. They ain't slow cooking. The standards are so high. The money's getting bigger. The other thing is that the draft processes are also even stronger. Okay, so that's why you're getting a lot of these players that are ready to play right now in day one. And you've got great players of every position around the country. That's what I'm saying. It's very, very hard to even do that. The product's fine. That's why I'm like, I would not even mess with it.
Yep, I would not either.
Well, there we go. Chase with the news.
This is the Hot Press.
We'll tell you, we are one more step away from getting to the finish line after this NFL season. And you know, this was actually very entertaining. That's why I'm like, the product of the NFL, why would you change it? I don't understand that thought, but think about it. If you were to make this like a draft lottery, tell me, what teams would you know, both AFC and NFC, that would constantly, or that would every year change? You know, the NFC, I just saw this, the last 10 NFC championships. You know, all of them were first-time quarterbacks, right?
Yep.
All of them. That's why I'm like, if you implemented this, how many times does Jaden Daniels get in? How many times does Jared Goff get in? How many times does, a lot of these NFC teams, like these quarterbacks, how many times would they get in? There would be a level of unfairness if that was to happen.
Well, just picture teams that are bad. Like, let's say Cleveland, for example. Like, what happens if they get 3 number 1 overall picks in a row, and you get a chance to get your franchise quarterback, a franchise edge rusher, and let's say you can get like a game-changing wide receiver and everything. Like, now you've got the Browns that are 3 years in a row that went from sucking to now all of a sudden being Super Bowl caliber teams. Why? Because they got the number 1 pick 3 years in a row.
And I think the other thing is, and we also can attest to the Detroit Lions with this, because remember, they have had a track record of losing records really badly. But they've had so many talented players: Barry Sanders, Megatron, Matt Stafford, multiple other players, right? And they always seem to be. This is why we did the top 10 draft. If you notice it, the top 10 picks, notice it how it's almost the same teams every year that are in the top 10 draft spots. Jacksonville. I mean, there was a time where Cleveland was like that, but that's because Cleveland had such a mess in their front offices and didn't build stability and consistency. Once they got Andrew Berry, once they got Kevin Stefanski, they started leaning in the right direction. Because here's the thing. That draft, when they drafted Myles Garrett, I knew right off the bat, this is a culture change. This team will no longer be terrible. It may look like that now, but because you get arguably one of the best edge rushers in the country out of Texas A&M, give this puppy some time to cook. Cleveland will be fine. And that's why, because this is why it's so important when you're in ownership. Got to nail the GM. Got to nail the coach. Eventually, you're going to nail the quarterback. That's why I love having a mixture of new technologies, new innovation, and new minds that are stuck into the statistical part, the analytics, and at the same time, they're watching film majority of the time. Whereas the old schools, what they're doing is that they're motivating the players. Most of them, they either go out and the players actually choose them in college, but then when you are in the pros, you choose the player. You now have to coincide with the GM and the coach to make sure that, hey, this is our guy. Think about it. When Jim Harbaugh came up in here, everybody was like, oh, they're going to get Brock Bowers. Oh, they're going to get Malik Neighbors. Oh, they're going to get – no, they chose, we got to protect Justin Herbert. We're going to take the best offensive tackle in the country, in Joe Alt. That's the thing. You coincide with everybody in that building. And it's like, we know the fan bases want this. We know the fan bases want that. We're listening to them. That's not the problem. The thing of it is that we know who arguably you want to get the best player in the country at any position. That's why I'm like, you got to be able to nail it. That's why Dallas is going through this problem. Because Dallas, if this fully does get finalized, Do you know how hard that would be to transfer what they once were as a well-respected oil machine into now like the
A
chump?
laughing stock.
Yeah. Think about that. I don't think Dallas fans are even ready for that. But again, what happened in that, and we'll get a little bit into this before we get into our prime predictions, but the news source on it is that the Brian Schottenheimer potential hire was not Jerry's idea. And, oh, wow. What do you know? So you know who actually came out with that source? The Suns. The Suns were the one that actually really liked Brian Schottenheimer in the building. But Jerry, this is classic. He said, no, this ain't my idea. Because you know he's going to honestly end up sticking his eye to Deion Sanders. I feel like, and I've been hearing this now for the last couple of days too, is that how fancy are the Dallas Cowboys? Truthfully, how fancy are they?
They like to think they are fancy.
Stadium, a prime Texas steaks that I like medium rare. I like them when, I like having at least the most premier sides possible, maybe with like, an old fashioned or whatever. They're fancy.
I like medium, but yeah.
Oh, come on. I like a little juiciness from there. It's savory.
I don't want mine mooing at me.
Anyway, they just like the Dallas Cowboys, because they're such a premier franchise, they love to roll out the red carpet. What makes you think that by the time the Super Bowl is right there, in comes Jerry Jones, rolls out the red carpet, and then here comes Deion Sanders? It never fails for the Dallas Cowboys. That's the thought. That's why I'm waiting and seeing. But all this hype around Schottenheimer, and listen, I like him. His late father, well-respected man. Loved Marty. But
is Marty his father? I thought Marty was like his uncle or something.
Very, very well-respected. But that's why I think with Brian Schottenheimer, I mean, have you looked at his track record of his coaching career? It's been like up, down, offensive coordinator, quarterbacks, a special assistant. I mean, and it's funny because even Coward mentioned that this is the kind of thing that you would do late in your career, right? Not so much early, because then that's where people really start to question you. Does Brian Schottenheimer really work in Dallas? Now, I like his play calling. I do. I just think the unfortunate part was he suffered a lot of injuries. He had a lot of inconsistencies. It was a lot of front office mess. But that's why they need to get control and structure, and they need to start innovating. You need to get some outside eyes, but Jerry's never going to do that. And could you really blame Jerry Jones if you made a fortune with an organization and people are trying to tell you, you need to try this, you need to do that? You'd be sitting there with your arms crossed and going, go screw yourself. I've made my fortune. I have made my millions. I have known exactly how to do that. You start to get like that. This is why I don't really hound on a lot of the older generation, because that's how they were built. Like if you told me I need to change a formula of a success that's worked for me for over 50 years, I would probably say the same thing. I'm being honest with you. I'm going to be 30 in March. I would probably, if I get to my point where I'm in my 70s and my 80s and I've built a track record of success for 50 years to where now I'm feeling like Warren Buffett. I'm sitting on my millions. I'm going to tell you I'm going to tell you the same thing. You know what I mean? That's just a reality. That's just, what it is. Again, it's like Chris Rose talked about. There's a perception deal, and then there's the reality. So your perception may not add to what the reality is. Your perceptions in the NFL with the Dallas Cowboys could be, well, you need to innovate. You need to give up some power. You need to do all that. You need to do this. You need to do that, right? It all sounds great and dandy, which a lot of these teams, they are innovating. They are opening up a lot of these things. But then your reality set is that you're telling an 80-year-old man who bought this team, turned it into a billion-dollar empire as it is, and you're telling him to fix his strategy. You know what I mean? That's the reality. People are going to rebel off that. Can you blame them? That's just what it is. You know what I mean? I mean, hell,
Yeah.
if you haven't watched, have you watched the cameo in Landman when he was there?
No.
I'm telling you, if you watch if you get a chance to watch Landman, watch that part of what he says. Because even though everybody that and I love Taylor Sheridan's shows, Tulsa King, Yellowstone, I love them. I have yet to see Landman. But the part in where Jerry Jones' cameo was explaining about the oil fields in Texas, watch how smart he is and watch the generation he grew up upon, because it's true. You think he's going to be willing to give up a lot of the, those oils and cruds and like all that he's built for years in Texas? No way. So I that's why I was like, man, it's insane to think that like even a cameo is explaining the realities of Jerry Jones from what the oil fields may be in Texas to how you run a football team in Texas. It's insane. But let's get to these prime predictions, man. We've made it thus far, and we're almost up to the finish line. And so
this week, and we figure out who is in the Super Bowl.
Yes, we do. And, man, I mean, we're talking about
potential Jaden Daniels versus Josh Allen.
Potential. Hey, hadn't had a matchup like that since 92.
Never had a rookie make it to the Super Bowl. So
there's a lot that we can basically look forward to. But we do got to give appreciation to BetUS, who has been riding with us with the partnerships for a long time, and really appreciate them coming in the clutches when it comes to odds, when it comes to the sports books, all of that. So here we go. Let's get some music in here. All right. Well, we made it. Let's start on the NFC, because I truthfully believe this is going to be a very entertaining game. So Washington against the Eagles in Philadelphia at 6. So to me personally, I love this matchup. And you know what? I'm going to take the Commanders +6. At least the odds. Now, here's the thing about it. This is the third time that both these teams have met this year. They always meet twice a year, every year in the NFC East. And the second time when Washington and the Commanders, they came in against Philadelphia. Look at how Philadelphia kind of beat themselves in that game against Washington. And I think a lot of that is because Jaden Daniels, the first matchup, he had to get his feet wet. He had to get a lot of things kind of in order and figured out before he met Philadelphia again. Now you are in Philadelphia this time, so it is getting colder again. But I think the poise of Jaden Daniels and the improvisations. Oh, and by the way, Zach Ertz, he actually came out and said he's so happy he's a part of this Washington team because he contemplated retirement since Arizona. So to be a part of this organization with a young quarterback who just has such an immense amount of just mental maturity and control and poise, I think this game might be closer than you think. I think it might be a very situational game. But I think, to me personally, I'm still going to take the Eagles. And the report, Quinyon Mitchell is set to play this weekend. So they are getting their star rookie corner from injury. He's okay to play. Clear to play. I'm going to take the Eagles, though, because I do think that there's going to be a little bit of some ugliness in this game. But the +6 for the Washington Commanders, the Eagles back into the Super Bowl, new coordinators now, and now they got to go and get the job done. Give me the score of Philadelphia 24-23.
I love it.
And finally, the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs back at it again. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. You know how the AFC is. But I feel like
0-3. Josh Allen is.
But here's the funny part. Josh Allen has beaten the Kansas City Chiefs this year in the regular season. Now, we know that it's a lot of, rah-rah, kind of feel. But this is the bigger stage now. And Josh Allen what an immense year that he is having with the Buffalo Bills. And was I surprised? Oh, no. Most of you all sold your stock. And now look at
I think it's because of his engagement. Like, I feel like his engagement kind of like, sparked a lot into him.
Yep. Leadership, the toxicity's out of the building. And like I said, we talked about this all the time. When you get a younger defense, they're ferocious, they're fast, they're strong, and you're not dealing with injury liabilities. And you know what's funny is that Von Miller, he's available. How big of a factor would Von Miller be against the Kansas City Chiefs? Seriously. I think Von Miller being that leader who has been to a Super Bowl, won a Super Bowl twice, and have that kind of leadership and capability, I think the Bills, this is where the reign stops. The Kansas City
Interesting.
Chiefs. I think the Buffalo Bills have the capability to do this. Now, because it's at 1, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills +1. I'm taking some dogs this weekend in the championship because the reason of it is because, again, even if I'm taking the Eagles to win, but with the Washington number at +6, I like the +1 because I do feel like these are the games that become one possession. So to me, cross your fingers. I think the Buffalo Bills shock the world, shock Kansas City, shock Arrowhead, and beat the Kansas City Chiefs in their home turf and win by a close margin.
That's a bold statement.
28-27. Josh Allen rams it through with a rushing touchdown, marching his way and marching the herd back to the Super Bowl since the night.
Oh, there's 13 seconds left on the clock. Mahomes gets the ball. And what does he do? Oh, 53-yard bomb to Travis Kelce. Touchdown. Chiefs win.
Not this time. I truthfully feel this is probably the best opportunity for the Bills to redeem themselves. I'm serious. We know we've been saying this every year about Buffalo. We've been saying this about Baltimore because we have 2 prolific quarterbacks. But if you recall the last 3 times these teams have met, right? That game that was so overscoring, both defenses played bad. But what it took Mahomes and the amount of time and for him to improvise for the Kansas City Chiefs to win. And mind you, that was with Tyreek Hill. That's with Travis Kelce. But the point of this was, look at it the last time what was it? 2 years ago when they both met? The part of it is that was a chess match of a fight.
The coin toss is what lost it for Allen.
It did. And then the second that the Chiefs got possession, the Chiefs started marching downfield, they figured that out. Kansas City was able to move on in. I think because of the amount of time and the amount of processes, the amount of just getting it right, getting the culture and the chemistry up to par. Now you're seeing Josh Allen in a different light. He's more focused. He's more poised. I think the other thing is that he is now taking the ball in his hands and he's running with it. And mind you, they paid him back-to-back cold weathers in Buffalo.
Yep.
This is not going to be a problem in Kansas City this time. And especially when you're a team that's red hot right now. You're a team that you got a mixture of veterans and youngsters on defense. Offensive line, and not to mention the run game, is going to be important. And I think they're going to rip a part of their chapter from that last matchup this year and probably implement this into this game. I feel a lot like it's going to be much more of a ground and pound smash mouth game in Kansas City. More than passing. I'm telling you, I think there will be points where Josh Allen will throw the ball, but this is the part where all those teams last weekend, what they all had in common is they had some type of turnover. This is a game can't afford to turn the ball over.
Yeah, because either one will take advantage of the turnover-worthy plays. So we'll have to wait and see what happens. I do predict Josh Allen to throw 1 pick. The Chiefs will score 3 points off of it. So
I think Josh Allen, I don't think he's going to throw a pick in this game.
Final score 30-27 Chiefs.
Okay. 28-27 Bills. I just think, look, we both are on the page of like this is going to be a close game because Kansas City's been tampering with this all season long. And the Bills, by the way, they have actually built themselves to be ready for games like this because they're capable of scoring points. But their point is when we have the possession and we score points and we have a lead, now we got to control time of possession. That's where you got to do. You got to keep Mahomes off the field and wear out that defense. I think that's their opportunity to do it this year. And again, Washington and Philadelphia, my takeaway of that is Washington to get as far as they did, what a culture shift for Washington. What a culture shift. In the amount of years since 92 when Dan Snyder owned this team. What a shift. And Philadelphia, they have a lot on their hands. Very talented. Can't seem to get over the hump. You're questioning about Nick Sirianni. He has 2 new coordinators now in the Super Bowl. Because it was Shane Steichen and it was
Jonathan Gannon.
And now you've got Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. So you can't afford. And then I think the other factor is that Quinyon Mitchell will be playing. Because that was the question mark.
And Jalen's going to be playing with the knee brace, so.
Yeah, and now remember, I think they're going to have points where Jalen Hurts, as much as they put him in so much hell, I think it's going to be everybody around him contributing. Saquon, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, everybody, even on that front line, even with the amount of times they do the tush-push, they're going to start contributing as well, that offensive line. I do want to bring this up in a quick wrap. So the San Francisco 49ers welcome back Robert Saleh in open arms. And the reason of this is because Robert Saleh is not a bad coach. He's not. He dealt with an unfortunate situation because you're dealing with Rodgers and you're dealing with Woody Johnson. You're dealing with a lot of the turmoils in New York. But that defense was not taken for granted. So the San Francisco 49ers, the thing that they're dealing with right now, look at how much of free agency they have to look at on their roster. That's a lot. Not to mention contract restructures. You may have to cut or trade a few pieces. I mean, they came out and said they plan to move on from Javon Hargrave, which they should. Older contract. I don't see it really working out anymore. But then they're not going to move on from Debo. But then again, anything can happen. But Robert Saleh, and I think the reasoning behind this with San Francisco is because I think this is more than just familiarity with Kyle Shanahan. I think they realize they have a matter in their hands that is going to be a handful to have to contain and control.
Yep.
Which is why I think with, Talanoa Hufanga, several other defensive players, the only person, truthfully, and from a defensive coordinating standpoint, the only person who could truthfully manage this from first string, probably all the way to like second practice squad tier, at least to build this roster, would be Robert Saleh. Because he is kind of the raw guy. Guys love him. He's alpha male. He's a guy that really can stand as the contributor in the room with a defense. And I think Robert Saleh would really put them back into shape. And I think a lot of this now is Kyle Shanahan doesn't have to deal with the stress of having to now fix that defense. Because now that Sorensen's gone and you bring back Robert Saleh, who you know and trust, can set the defense tone straight. And all you got to now work on is just the consistency of offense of what you lost from this previous season. So, again, I think San Francisco, I don't think this is a terrible organization. They have come to a fork in the road this year because of injuries and inconsistencies. And with what Brock Purdy is. He's a Jimmy Garoppolo, but with wheels. That's really what he is. Okay, accurate, poised, control, like he basically controls the consistency of the playbook. So he's better on script, but can't improvise off script. So that's why I'm like, I think San Francisco, keep your eyes on them this offseason and in the draft. Because, again, I put this pointer out when I thought that when it came to Cam Ward, I think you got – when have we ever seen Kyle Shanahan with a dynamic quarterback like a Mahomes or a Herbert or a Burrow? Or I've never seen that. I mean, you had Matt Ryan, pocket
RG3.
Yeah, well, I think RG3
because he was the OC back in when Mike Shanahan was the coordinator of.
I do recall that. My thing is that with RG3, they just didn't quite have the personnel in front of them as far as offensive line and all the rest of it. And Washington was kind of more in a turmoil anyway. That's why they knew they needed to get a quarterback. And I think since his rookie season, things just didn't pan out. Maybe it's he leaned too much into the run, didn't quite utilize so much of that arm, because he had a very good arm out of Baylor. He had a very good arm. But I think he leaned so much into his legs rather than just build the pocket awareness, find ways to improvise and get out of danger, out of the pockets, than just go and put yourself in harsh situations. Why would you do that? So, and you know what's funny about that is that's the same kind of mentor mentality when he was in Baltimore teaching Lamar Jackson, because Lamar was in the same similar position. Mobile, agile. People think he couldn't throw, but he can. We've seen that now from time to time, and this is one of his best passing seasons in his career. So, and I think a lot of that just goes to Todd Monken. But the point is, I don't think San Francisco is a terrible organization. I just think they very much have hit a rough spot. And that's why I'm watching John Lynch, because bringing in Robert Saleh only meant one thing. You cannot contain that defense, especially with the amount of names that are on the free agent list. That's why you got to have somebody who you know and trust very well that will help to stabilize one side. And Kyle can now work on the other. And they have to get this right. San Francisco not making the playoffs felt like it felt a lot like the aftermaths of the bubonic plague, if you know what I mean. Not the actual plague itself, but how buildings tore down, people started getting injured and sick and, all that other stuff, right? With the analogy kind of part. The team got injured. The team got inconsistent. And it felt a lot like the organization. It felt like towers were kind of coming down. Buildings were coming down. It was like it was a bad day for San Francisco. That's what I mean by that. But I think this is perfect. I think this Kyle Shanahan.
Great move.
Yeah. And you know what? This is not a step backwards for Robert Saleh either. I think this is more of you come back, you get right, and
don't try for head coach next year.
Yes. And there will be better head coaching jobs next year. Better ones.
Maybe Cleveland. That might be one.
Cleveland could be one. Miami's a possibility if they can't get Mike McDaniel right.
Colts, if Shane doesn't work out.
Colts with Steichen. And I think to me, truthfully, if you can't get this right in Tennessee, I could see the Titans making a move.
I could see Arizona making a move too if Jonathan Gannon doesn't work out.
True, but what's funny is that Arizona, you can agree to disagree. But I think a lot of this had to lean on because the chemistry between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray was so spotty. I mean, I think Jonathan Gannon, there was a part where the defense actually had some fight in them, but then they crashed down because the offense couldn't even get on the same page. And we've seen this with Trey McBride and multiple others, but so much of this, and we've had conversations kind of breaking down with Marvin Harrison Jr. I think a lot of this is this offseason, work on your craft, get right, and then go for an explosive year in year two. And that can happen. But you have to establish that communication. I think that was really the problem. Young rookie, There was a lot of things that were kind of built up around him as far as the hype, and they couldn't build the chemistry. They couldn't build it.
Yep.
Now, whether that's a quarterback or that may be not an offensive fit could be an issue, but either one of those. Good stuff. Championship weekend, man.
I'm excited.
I truthfully am excited. And this is the thing, man. It's like not everything in the NFL is guaranteed. Not everything. I mean, we watched the Detroit Lions be 15-2 and they went down. Granted, injuries really hurt this team. But Dan Campbell's got to figure out a way to really get back at this. Because that's a sour taste in Detroit's mouth. Because the amount of the expectation, what lean into this year. Yes, It sucks that Aiden Hutchinson went down. Yes, it sucks that there were a lot of injuries all the way up to this point. But you cannot kind of, and again, fan bases will be fan bases, but you cannot raw on the fact you haven't even appeared in the Super Bowl. You haven't even.
I mean, if they were healthy, they would have made it to the Super Bowl this year.
I agree. I think the other thing of it was, and I think the conversation too that's still been lingering around is, what was Ben Johnson doing? He wasn't thinking about the game. There were some of them that felt like, if you watch the play calling in that Detroit game, that's what gets controversial.
The play calling was fine. The offense could not execute. Jared Goff threw 2 picks, Jared Goff threw 2 picks, and then Jamison Williams had a pick too. So you can't blame that on Ben Johnson because he's the one calling the plays.
Let me be honest with you. Why did Detroit run away from the run? Jahmyr Gibbs was doing just fine on the ground. I think a lot of that is, look at how many dump-offs that we had with Jamison Williams and, this and that. I felt like that was just him getting cute. And you cannot be in a big stage like this where you may potentially when are you going to get a chance to even get into the road to the Super Bowl? When are you going to get that chance now? You know what I mean? And again, I know he's smart and I know he's very clever, but I felt like in that game plan, he got too cute. I've seen a couple dump offs. I've seen a couple bootleggers, and I've seen a couple of these other trick plays that I'm just like, what are we doing?
I don't blame him. I do not blame Ben Johnson. I blame Jared Goff and Jamison Williams because if it had not been for those picks, the score does not turn out the way it does. It's a tied ball game. If not, the Lions are up by 7 or even up by 3, and you don't have to get that cute. You don't have to be creative. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. Like, it is not on Ben Johnson. I am not blaming that game on Ben Johnson at all. I'm blaming it on Aaron Glenn from not making adjustments and trying to stop them. And I'm also blaming
the defensive side of the ball. I mean, look, it is what it is. But here's a.
I mean, Cleveland faced over 30 injuries.
Yep.
And they were able to go with their backups, and they were still able to stop people and everything. But granted, this didn't happen in the playoffs, but still, the point being is we stopped people. So
the argument that I have to solidify this, are you ready for it? Because have you seen the stat line on the box score? This is why that, in my opinion, here's what it is. Okay, let me just tell you from the rushing standpoint. Jahmyr Gibbs, 14 carries. 105 yards on the ground, 2 rushing touchdowns, and he was averaging 7.5 yards a play. Right? Hold that thought. Jared Goff, 23 of 40 for 313 passing yards, 1 touchdown and 3 picks. If Jahmyr Gibbs has 15 carries for over 100 yards, why are you throwing the ball with Jared Goff over 40 times? Do you not realize that Jared Goff, when you solely rely on him, this is how he folds? The run game was fine. Hell, Jamison Williams had 1 play for over 61 yards. What are we doing? And Washington, to be honest with you, they didn't even shut down that run. They didn't shut down that run as great.
I also blame Dan Campbell because, you could have played David Montgomery more, and he'd only played him 3 times.
Feel like it's a multitude of things. But I'm not steering away from Ben Johnson because here's the thing. You are an offensive coordinator. You're the one calling the offensive play calls. And listen, Dan Campbell, this is why I want to see the staff he gets next year. Because remember, this is the ultimate test. Nick Sirianni went through this with Philadelphia. Because here's the thing. They lost the Super Bowl to Kansas City. Both Steichen and Gannon all got coaching jobs. Okay, and well respected. What happened that next year?
They went downhill.
They started hot at 10-1 and then went crash landing downhill late in the season. Nobody was working. Sean Desai, Matt Patricia, Brian Johnson, nobody was working. And that's why when they fired those two coordinators and they went with Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, you knew the heat was on Nick Sirianni and you knew he needed to make this work because that is Howie Roseman and Jeffrey Lurie are very smart people in that building. They do not want that talent taken for granted. That is why all that heat is on Nick Sirianni. You know he needed to make this work because how could you bring in so much immense amount of talent and you don't win a Super Bowl? How do you do that? A lot of that does come from the coaching trees. It does come from the coaching staff. This is why I felt like with Ben Johnson, this is my honest opinion. And I'll die on that hill with it. I think in some of those spurts, if Jahmyr Gibbs is running for 105 yards on 15 carries, and the defense hasn't even shut him down, he had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game. Why am I solely putting the ball in Jared Goff's hands?
Well, you could say the same thing with Todd Monken last year with the Ravens and the Chiefs. Like, why do you go away from the run game? Why are you relying on Lamar to throw the ball and everything?
But that's my point. This is why I don't give a pass for the offensive coordinator when it comes to that situation. Because again, you may perspect one thing, right? Where you don't solely blame on Ben Johnson, right? Yeah. My thing is the box score tells me different.
The box score can tell you all at once, but the 3 interceptions are the big thing right there for Jared Goff. The 3 interceptions, because you take at least 2 of those interceptions away, Lions win.
40 passing attempts that accounts for the 3 picks. 40. Why would you do that? If you know you have a legit offensive line, you have a legit running game, you have very good weapons with Amon-Ra St. Brown and with Jameson Williams. Why am I throwing the ball 40 times?
If he wanted to keep him fresh for the next few games. Like he was probably thinking ahead. Like, I want to save Jahmyr so I don't run him into the ground in this game. I want to save him for the game against the Eagles.
Why if they're not shutting him down? The defensive line it didn't even shut him down once. Why would I do that?
He's probably just trying to keep him healthy because you already had one running back injured for running him too much in David Montgomery.
Think about this. Why do you think Dallas never made the playoffs this year? Because the
run game was crap.
They became Dak reliant. And you know what happens? Because when you become Dak reliant, this is what happens. He doesn't win a whole lot of games. I've seen this from when a quarterback has more than 40 pass attempts. That's a bad sign. That's a very bad sign. That's why, like, with Jim Harbaugh and company with Justin Herbert, right, all through the season, Jim Harbaugh's philosophy is this is why he took an offensive tackle, because he wants to protect Herbert. He also wants a healthier run game in the play action because they don't want to be overly Herbert reliant. Even Herbert threw for so many passes. And we ask ourselves this. Why did Greg Roman run away from the run with J.K. Dobbins?
It's official. It's official. Cowboys hire Brian Schottenheimer.
Did it happen, really?
Yep, just now.
All right, let me bring up. We were so close to ending the show. Oh, wow. Oh, wow. All right. Well, I know.
It's official.
You know what's going to happen when I get off here, right? I'm going to have to check in with some Cowboy people. And again, I've got a lot of people on my back pocket. I'm going to be checking in with a bunch of them. And I would love their thoughts. Is this good? Or is this the downfall of a very well-respected institution?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, there you go. And you know what? This is solidified exactly what Deion Sanders was talking about. I'm not leaving. Why would I leave? And this is the thing. Me living in Colorado, I'm right down there by Boulder in like 40 minutes. Why would I leave a program that I know I'm shaping to get these young kids to grow into young men? And this is the thing. And again, Joel Klatt said it perfectly. And he was bluntly honest about this. And this is a Colorado alumni. But he wasn't just showing off his bias towards Colorado. He said it perfectly like this. If you want to go to the NFL, then go to the NFL. Go. But the thing about it is if you take this job with Dallas, you have one shot. Because Dallas is $1 billion ownership. There's expectations that's high and involved because you're dealing with the weight of the brand. You're dealing with the weight of the ownership. You're dealing with a lot of that. And the weight of Dallas media. Whereas you're here in Colorado, where you've turned around an average of 1 to 2 wins a year type of program, reshape the culture, and you're going to get paid well respectfully now with this NIL money. You're going to be paid respectfully. So why would you
got Julian Lewis that came in too.
Well, but that's the thing is that the players choose you.
Yeah.
In the NFL, you choose them. And who knows if Jerry Jones, was willing to pass on that power?
Exactly.
And now, well, Jerry Jones pissed. I'm telling you this right now. I think because this got finalized, I guarantee you, when I hear some internal voices in there, I guarantee. How much do you want to guess that this was the Suns that pushed this higher?
Probably.
The Suns had to have had over influence on this hire.
Steven probably had an influence on it, yeah.
And then you wonder why that, again, I don't know. I have a bad feeling about it. I like Brian Schottenheimer. Do not get me wrong. I like him. But I feel bad. Dallas media is I guarantee you I'm going to turn on the radio tomorrow morning on a Saturday. You know how bad the state of Texas is literally going to feel. I'm serious. Dallas media, and listen, they have hounded Jerry Jones for a few months with as many times as Jerry Jones has been on the media.
Watch him hire Bobby Slowick as his OC.
Oh, good hell. And that's watch them pass on Ashton Ginty, and then they go and get like Luther Bird as their right.
That or they get like James Pierce Jr. or something.
I'm trying hard not to be funny here, but it's like, you know what I mean? It's like
watch him get like Bobby Slowick and pass on Ashton Ginty and get like the third offensive line prospect in the draft.
Yankees.
Oh my gosh.
You know what's funny? I actually laughed about this just before we wrap up. Howard actually said it best. But the Dallas Cowboys are looking like what the Lakers could have been if they didn't get LeBron. No stability.
Yeah.
The Lakers are a premier franchise. Now look what's happening. Wow. And I've got Philadelphia and Washington in the championship. That's not going to sit well. And by the way, the saving grace, somewhat of a saving grace for the Giants, is at least they kept a coach. You're just hoping that Joe Shane actually doesn't screw this up. I mean, Jacksonville at least redeemed themselves. They redeemed themselves. They did the right thing. You did exactly with what Liam Cohen wanted. And you're like, whatever you want, just don't leave the building. They did exactly that. Now you're actually going to let him have reins and control of personnel. They're going to be fine. Dallas, $60 million a year. I'm dealing with injuries. I'm dealing with Micah and the podcast. Wow. This is not going to be a good day for Dallas.
Almost $130 million between Micah. What will be between Micah, CD, and Dak?
I am trying to, at the very least, show somewhat of utmost respect for this organization because of the amount of success it's built. But this is very hard. This is very hard for me. And listen, I'm going to text a lot of the top guys, and you know what I'm talking about? I'm talking about the top 5 best Dallas Cowboy content guys that are very close to this organization. The number 1, Law Nation. He is not going to be happy with this.
Let's get Micah Parsons in on this podcast.
Yeah, why not? We're doing podcasts. Let's jump up on a podcast. Hey, Micah, how do you think about Brian Schottenheimer? You were so close to getting Deion Sanders. Now you got Brian. How do you feel about that? Unbelievable. All right, we got to wrap this up. We've had too much fun here, but it's been a fun week, though, at least.
It has. A lot that we had to talk about.
Oh, man. But I'll tell you what, though, the Shrine Bowl, East and West, and, we're already in the Senior Bowl. I've already got –
next week.
Yeah, I've already gotten so many well-respected people that are down there now, kind of getting some inside scoops. In fact, one of my good friends, he's down there in Vegas now, in Allegiant. And he's already ran into Shedeur Sanders. He's already ran into Shiloh. He's already ran into a lot of people, even Will Shepard.
Shedeur's at the Senior Bowl?
You're damn right.
Wow.
Yep, in the Shrine Bowl. Because remember,
I did not know that.
Yeah, so he's got to get the inside scoops. A big-time Raider guy, he's got to get this. So, so he's getting all those inside scoops. But it'll be interesting now. No Deion to the NFL, back in college, right where he should be. I think it'd be fun. Appreciate everybody for joining us on and having such a fun week this week. Supposed to be expecting snow tonight, but that's okay. Not a whole lot, but at least it'll get me prepped up for that Kansas City Buffalo game at least. But championship weekend, enjoy it and good luck to the remaining 4 teams. Whoever makes it out. Boy, we're gonna have a lot to talk about that with Super Bowl 59. Appreciate it, everybody. Have a great night. Have a great rest of your weekend. And we will see you guys next week on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, everyone.